Throughout the course of galactic history, several highly prominent and iconic Sith Lords have held titles among the ranks of these nefarious darkside wielders. While the modern era of Sith showcases the lives of only a handful, hundreds of incredibly ruthless Sith Lords have left their marks on the course of galactic history. One such Sith Lord is known as Darth Malak, who had an illustrious career over 3,000 years before the rise of the Empire, and is perhaps most well known for the loss of his jawline, resulting in the iconic mechanical brace which replaced his mouth for much of his latter life. So then, how exactly did Darth Malak lose his jaw to begin with, in which galactic conflict culminated as not only his defeat, but his physical dismemberment and utter humiliation? Well, today, students of the Force, let's explore how Darth Malak lost his jaw. The encounter in question took place during the Jedi Civil War in the year 3957 BBY, when Malak was just a lowly apprentice of the dark side. Before their introduction into the Order of the Sith, both Malak and his master, known formally as Revan, were members of the Jedi Order who served in the war against Mandalore. From the beginning, the relationship between the two Jedi held a highly unique position among most master and apprentice relationships, and for years they fought side by side as equals and friends, and as paragons of the Jedi Order. They were far more willing to take more aggressive means in their fights, becoming two of the fiercest Mandalorian oppositional forces throughout the entirety of the war, and essentially the heroes of the Republic. After the war had come to a bloody end, they ventured out into the unknown regions to hunt down Mandalorian survivors, abandoning the Jedi Order in order to satiate their own internal bloodlust and warped sense of justice. Unlike most Sith master and apprentice relationships, the two joined the ranks of the dark side at the same time, and were much closer together in skill level than most masters and apprentices of the dark side. Most masters trained under a master of their own, who they then overthrow in order to take on an apprentice later in their training, passing down knowledge and skills to someone much younger than themselves. Malak and Revan, however, were different, and in reality, either of them could have been declared the master over the other, and their relationship was more akin to a brotherhood rather than having a clear hierarchy of who was more powerful or knowledgeable. His master, now known as Darth Revan, was one of the more emotionally conflicted Sith Lords of the entire Star Wars lore, leading Malak to view his master as weak and soft in comparison to the fearsome Sith Lords that the dark side had come before them. And throughout the course of his training under Revan, his aggression only grew. Soon after, they enacted a war on the Jedi Order and the Republic, and due to their former tenure as prolific Jedi Knights, this conflict came to be known as the Jedi Civil War. Though they were no longer formally recognized as Jedi, this conflict was one of the more personal struggles for members of both sides of the Force, and this eventually led to Malak enacting the rule of two aboard Darth Revan's starship, as it had finally come to a boiling point between the two of them, as Malak believed he had learned everything he needed to know from his former master. Malak then decided the next logical step was to assume the role of Sith Emperor, usurping control from his master in the process, and commencing a lightsaber duel. Here, Malak ignited his blade against his former master and longtime friend, failing to realize that he still had much to learn, and quickly came to an understanding of why Revan was declared the master of the two of them. While Revan was more controlled and calm on the regular, this was not to be confused for weakness, as Malak had incorrectly assumed. As they dueled aboard Revan's flagship, Malak lost his temper and began to rely too heavily on his aggression, rather than maintaining his composure as Revan had done, something that only infuriated Malak further. And as the dark side augmented Malak's hatred for the one who had trained alongside him for years, Revan was able to exploit a key opening and weakness in Malak's offense. This led to Darth Revan, in one swift, violent lightsaber strike, severing Malak's jawline in a single instance of momentary weakness and an opening in his defense and offense at the same time. This ended the duel almost immediately, as the extent of Malak's injuries hadn't yet been determined, and Revan left his apprentice for dead aboard his own flagship. While much of the specifics regarding the duel are not yet known, we do know that Malak was able to survive and escape, but not without severe ramifications following him for the rest of his life. He commissioned the construction of a specialized prosthetic, which allowed him to vocalize his thoughts, though it was a far cry from the voice that he had lost that long fateful day ago. While he could be understood, the voice was a gargled echo of his former self. and he would carry this handicap with him throughout the remainder of his life as a Dark Lord. As Malak began to harbor a much more intense resentment for his former master, the two parted ways, and Malak grew into an incredibly formidable Sith master in his own right, a now more humbled Sith master. Shortly thereafter, he was able to assume control of the Sith regime, using this iconic cybernetic enhancement to augment his physical appearance and strike fear into his enemies. He was able to use this as a tactic of fear, becoming a far more imposing physical threat to those who would oppose him, and this quickly went from one of the most intensely painful deformities into an incredibly valuable asset. This assisted Malak's reign of terror after Revan was sent into hiding, having lost his memory and all but abandoned his life as a Sith Lord as a result, Revan abandoning the dark side, and Malak grew into the reigning emperor as Revan passed on. Though this would not be the last time they would meet, this one event solidified Malak's own desire to obtain control and live his life as the single master of the dark side under none, becoming subservient to nobody and enacting his own will on his subjects across the stars. For the first time in Malak's life, this gave him the ability to be truly free from any master, as his service under the Jedi Order had forced him to obey the orders of a council, and even the allure of the dark side entailed his control under Revan. Despite the power that the dark side offered, Malak was still forced to bow before not just any master, who he wholeheartedly believed he rivaled in terms of physical power and power in the Force, believing this to be a great injustice. Now, with the fear factor provided with his new jaw and the absence of Revan, he was free to enact his own will over the galaxy, being a slave to nobody and a master of everyone who he believed could serve him. But anyway, students of the Force, what do you think of this terrifying story? And would you like to see the story of Darth Revan and Darth Malak brought into live action, or one of various animated projects within the mainline Star Wars canon? And if you haven't already, and you want to stay up to date daily with Star Wars lore and developments, reach out with the Force and Force crush that subscribe button. As always, my friends, may the Force be with you, and I hope that you have a great day.